Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Just Kidding with John and Kevin. That was pretty sweet. That was pretty good. We're still arguing about who should do the beginning.
Yeah, the introduction.
I just like being loud, though.
Just so you guys know, we will still do the introduction after. We're now working on getting someone or somehow get a actual intro, like a little recording of someone playing. I mean, I can probably work on it, but I'm not going to, honestly.
It'd be nice to have like a little jingle at the beginning.
We want a jingle at the beginning, but we're still working on that. So that's gonna be played first, and then we'll go into our intro. And like you said, we're still working on who's going to be doing it, but we'll probably be passing it back and forth each episode or so.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
We'll see what happens.
That's the thing, like, it can't get any worse than what it is now. You know? Like,
yeah, it can.
Like, and we can add, like, and we can actually, we need an actual outro.
Yeah, we need an outro.
Something to end on. We need, not necessarily a good intro, but a nice little jingle. You know, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Some way to end it, but even ending could just be like, that can be pretty abrupt, but we want a good intro. We definitely want a good intro.
Right. The whole reason that podcast number 1 ended so quickly is because my lovely wife walked in the door, and I was like, uh-oh, I don't want her talking.
And making noise, because he has a cat, and the cat, as soon as his wife comes home, the cat is like meowing like crazy, trying to get some treats, because the cat knows as soon as Lydia, his wife, comes home, she's getting treats. That's just how the cat...
My cat is crazy, so if you ever hear like a whole bunch of random noise or us shuffling around or whatever, chances are it's because the cat jumped up on the table, and then you'll probably hear her yell when I try to get her off. She has an attitude.
Her name is Sassy.
She has an attitude.
She's quite sassy.
Okay, so today's topics. We wanted to wrap up our discussion from podcast number 2.
Right.
About just... what we want in like our dream video game.
Yeah, because in the last one we talked about favorite games and least favorite games, and like also the first game we played and got us introduced to video games. And like we said, we wanted to get into the next topic, but we were still finishing off video games. Right. And the topic is going to be pretty much exactly what is your style of game that you want. If you could create any game in the world, any game that you could create, you can have people create it for you, but it's your story and your ideas. How would you make it? Why would you make it? And who would make it? Like, which company? So this one is actually going to be a big... It's like our ideas of this is going to pretty much the exact same thing. Game. We both have a very similar idea. We talked about this a little bit before.
But before we get into this discussion, I just also want to say that, like, we had mentioned in podcast number 1 that we're not going to talk about video games all the time. It just so happened that last podcast and this podcast, the last podcast was majority. It was all video games.
Yeah. This
one, we're going to talk about this topic for a little bit. But then we also want to hit on movies, like what our favorite movies are and what our least favorite movies are. And then next time is going to be probably a totally different
maybe we'll have some idea by the end of this episode. We'll kind of branch off on that for the next one.
Right. But And another thing I want to do, and I threw this to Kevin before we started up, is I am very boisterous at times. And I have the first podcast and the last podcast, I kind of like threw my words at certain people. Like, I called out certain people. So I think I want to start sticking with that and do like a call out of the day. Like, every podcast, I'm going to call somebody out. Or like a group of people out, and I'm going to be directing my message towards them. And I don't necessarily have anybody picked out at this point, but I think it's something I want to continue. So you never know; that might pop up randomly while we chat.
We'll see how that goes.
I don't know. Kevin doesn't want me to do it.
I don't know. I don't know how popular it's going to be, especially among those people that you are calling out.
Maybe they need to hear what I have to say. Maybe I'm the spokesperson for a small group of people who are afraid to open their mouths about whatever it may be that I'm arguing.
Yeah, you never know. They come find you and kill you.
You never know.
But this one, like I said, is going to be about... We're going to finish off the video game topic, and we're going to go into movies. So,
all right, let's do it.
Our idea for the perfect video game is very similar. We have pretty much the exact same... the description just is a little different. Our idea is
a video game about 2 pairs of gloves. It's co-op. It's
like Glover, but for 2 players. No, and actually, going back to that, he didn't believe me about Glover, and I showed him, and he even said it doesn't look as bad as it sounded, but it's still pretty bad. But
it was like, here's the thing. After we got done with that podcast, our buddy Ethan stopped over. And he asked how the podcast went. And we just told him, kind of what we were touching on, this and that. And we told him that we had mentioned our worst video games that we just, hated or whatever. And he asked what it was. And as soon as Kevin said, oh, I mentioned Glover, Ethan looked at him, straight face and goes, is that the game about a glove? And we're like, yes. The game is so lame, and that's what people know.
It is a pretty lame game, but they had a chance of making it a lot better for the N64. And I didn't believe him about the fairy tale fights, but we looked it up, and Machinima, which is a very popular gaming
I love Machinima
community. What they do is they'll play games, they'll show you how to play them, they'll even go off on kind of describing the game and the backstory, and all they do all sorts of stuff. Well, this one dude who works for Machinima, he does a play, rent, or pass. What is, he kind of reviews the game, and he tells you if you should play it, if you should, or no, it's pay. It's pay, rent, or pass. If you should pay for it, if you should rent it, or if you should just pass on it. And at first he started talking like it was actually kind of a decent game, and then all of a sudden it was like everything was a negative comment towards this.
This guy made Fairy Tale Fights sound worse than what I made Fairy Tale Fights sound.
And if you guys want to check that out, really type into YouTube Fairy Tale Fights review, and this dude, it says from Machinima. It's the YouTube channel. Check it out. It's really funny.
And it's nothing against IGN or Destructoid or any of those other cool video game companies or whatever. It's just Machinima just happens to be the first video that popped up, right?
And that was all I needed to see to actually prove his point. So I was good after I saw that video.
All right, so let me hear it, Kevin. If you were to design what is your perfect game? What would you want in a video game? I mean, let's just pretend that, you could literally have anything. The world could be enormous. Whatever you want, you could have. What would your perfect game be?
Okay, so mine is going to be very similar to what Bethesda's already released. Unfortunately, it's not too creative in the way of coming up with something original, but I've just always really enjoyed Skyrim and Oblivion more over Fallout, because I'm a bigger fan of the medieval fantasy style than I am post-nuclear warfare or even just modern-day weapons. I like them, but I like the fantasy a lot more. So I would probably go more off of a Skyrim-based, kind of sword and shield, bow and arrow, whatever. But it's still open world. It's still going to be, you can go around, you can steal, you can kill, you can do whatever you want, or you can be the good guy. But also, I would like to bring in a friend of mine. I would like to be a multiplayer Skyrim.
Like a co-op.
Very exactly like a co-op. You can play the story together. Now I still haven't figured out if I want to, if I were to make this game or whatever, if it would be I can play half the game and then you start over at level 1 and I'm helping you with the original quest, or if it's going to be you have to play from the beginning together or separate.
That's how Borderlands is. I mean, I hopped in a game with one of my buddies one time. And I was level 30 something, and he just started off level 1, and I was killing these monsters.
That's the only reason I would not want that, is because I could just power level you right up.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what happened.
You could just power level him.
And he couldn't do anything. He literally just stood there and hid.
I know, and that's fun in the point of, hey, I can bring you up to my level real quick, and we'll be able to get things going at the same pace. But then it's just
but here's the thing.
He's missing that whole section of the game that you've just pushed him through.
But do you even want leveling in your game? Why not start off with all the abilities? Why not start off with all the weapons? Maybe you have to go find them and learn how to do them.
Are you feeling more like a Minecraft style, where you kind of make it as you go?
Well, not necessarily make it, but what if they're already out there? I mean, you necessarily wouldn't have to level. I guess in my game, once again, same thing. I like giant open world games where I can pick and choose whatever I want. And I like Skyrim's world, the actual world itself.
Right.
It was just beautiful. I mean, like I said, you ran into all the seasons. You come across winter, summer, all kinds of good stuff. And I would want a first-person shooter that felt like Call of Duty, that had those controls, and with modern weapons. But in a world like Skyrim, where as you're going along, it wouldn't be like dragons and trolls and stuff. It would be enormous, giant, huge monsters that just come out of nowhere, So and I would want it to be co-op. So if you and I are playing, and you wanted to be my sniper scout or whatever, you would, let's say climb up a mountain, and you would, be like a couple hundred yards away from me up top and say, okay, I see, this off in the distance. And then I would maybe flank to the side, you would snipe down, something like that. Like, I would want to work co-op, and, like, there would be no leveling. There would be, like, none of this stuff. It would just purely be an enormous world with enormous monsters, and you just go find them. Like, you're just a hunter, and you just go do that. Like,
yeah.
There's really there wouldn't be any plot to it, but I think it would be a lot of fun. And, I mean, every monster you encounter, you would have to figure out different ways of actually killing
tactics.
them. Right. I mean, you're just not going to stand there with a light machine gun and just stand behind a tree, glitch yourself, like, behind a tree and just keep firing. I mean, you would actually have to maybe, let's say, use traps or, do different things, like lure it out into...
Would you have it set up to where, like, you did, like, quests, or you did, like, side missions or something, or would you just have, basically, you hop in a game, you go find monsters, you turn it off whenever you feel?
Simple as that. Simple as that. I mean, it would just be an enormous world. You just hang with your boys. I mean, tons of different weapons you could use. I mean, tons. Almost unlimited ammo. And even if there wasn't unlimited ammo, I think you touched on it. Even if I didn't carry unlimited ammo, there would be certain checkpoints around the world where you can go and get more ammo.
Right.
And stuff like that. Like, I just want a huge world where I could fight stuff, Like, it would just be fun.
Sort of set up like a kind of gladiator feeling where you're in a big battlefield and they just keep sending monsters at you.
Yeah, kind of like that.
But you have to go find the monsters yourself.
Right, you have to go, like, seek them out. And don't get me wrong, there might not just be one huge monster. Because, like, in God of War, like, you had those huge bad guys. You're tiny compared to sort of like that type of a scale.
By the way, God of War, I'm going to go off on a God of War, like, little rant here. I got my PS3 about, let's say, 5 months ago. 4 or 5 months ago.
Before Christmas.
It was Christmas, actually, I got it.
And
I got God of War a couple months before that because I went down to the store and it was like this big deal of like get 2 games, you get 1 free or something like that. And I picked God of War. I knew I was getting a PS3, so I knew I wanted to play a PS3 game when I got it, other than the stock game that comes with it. So I got God of War before I got the system, and I was psyched to play it. Like I've been psyching myself up because I've heard so many good things about it. I sat down and I played God of War. I seriously, within 3 days of actually playing, I had beaten it, and that's while working, 40 hours at a time because that was in the middle of like a season, so there was a lot of business coming in. While doing all this other things, while still having like a social life to some extent, I was able to push through God of War, and it took about 10 hours of game time, which doesn't sound like a lot. Which it kind of isn't in nowadays games.
School and work, and you're keeping your social life with your girlfriend and everything. Like, fitting in game time is tough to do.
And I powered through the game. That game was magnificent. It was a great game. One of the best games I have played on the PS3 yet.
I saw the God of War collection at Target the other day on clearance for $10.
Really?
I thought about you. Yeah.
I got the complete saga right now.
Yeah.
I just beat 1 and 2. Like 2, I finished right after 1. I went right into it, played through it, got both of them platinum. I went through those games like it was nothing.
What was your first platinum again? Was it God of War?
It was God of War. I played God of War. I got the platinum. I played Sly Cooper. I got that platinum.
You blew through that game quick too.
But I used to play it a long time ago on the PS2, so I had it in my memory already. And then I got Lego Batman 2 DC characters. I got that platinum, and then I just got God of War 2 platinum. So it's like within 2 months, I had 4 platinums already done.
That was fast. Like, you kept... Because we had, like, a little... I don't want to say a mini trophy race. We started talking a lot of crap to each other about who can get the most amount of trophies, like... Not in any certain time, just, see if you can keep up. And you got, 200-something trophies.
I got up to, 280
within,
2 to 3 months?
Yeah.
No, it was just 2 months and,
it was about
a couple
2
weeks.
months. You got a couple hundred trophies. And I'm sitting at 850-something right now. I've had mine for a few years. But, you buckled down, man, and you hit...
I just haven't picked it up in a while. But if I picked it back up, I could get right back into, I have 3 games I haven't even touched.
Right.
I have 3 games I'm working on right now. I could just sit down and just power through half of those and not get up to 800 because that's going to be a while. But I could get myself up a little bit. But God of War was a great game.
Yeah, I haven't tried it, man. It's weird because, I know PlayStation has great exclusive games. Between, God of War and Uncharted and the Killzone franchise, and there's a few others in there.
Even the Assassin's Creed, I think. No, those are a few systems, I think.
I think those are a few, but I mean, they have such great exclusives, but I don't own any of them, man. Like, I don't.
Well, I'll let you borrow God of War coming up soon.
All right.
But that was just my little God of War rant.
That's
I had to
cool.
go
So are we covered? Are we covered with?
I think so. I mean,
game?
open world 2-player, or at least co-op, open world co-op game where you go around.
Right.
Yours is killing monsters. Mine is sort of a Skyrim feel.
Right. I mean,
that's
like,
the only difference between ours.
Yeah,
really.
Mine has, like I said, what I like about Call of Duty is the controls. Simple as that.
See, I'm not a big Call of Duty fan. I've just never picked up on Call of Duty.
That's cool though. But you have to admit though, like if you had a Call of Duty feel to a Skyrim type game, like you would be into that. You would be into that. That would be sweet.
Isn't that kind of like Far Cry though?
I love Far Cry. Yeah, but Far Cry, I don't think the controls are as tight as Call of Duty is. I don't know necessarily how to explain that. I mean, if you played both games, you would kind of know what I'm talking about. But Far Cry was my first platinum. That game was like Fallout 3.
He's had the system for 3
couple
years
now.
2010
probably,
is that what you said?
Yeah.
And that's like 2.5 years, or maybe even 3 years by now.
I'm approaching 3 years. I've had it probably
and then
about 2.5.
he got his platinum after I got my first platinum. Now, God of War...
No, I did not. No, I did not. Remember? Because I texted you
Oh,
that
you got
night,
it like the day before
but then
me.
you got a whole bunch in a row. So, like, you're beating me on platinums, but I got mine first.
Right.
Yeah, but, dude, it was like... That's the thing. I had an opportunity to get 2 other platinums, and both games glitched on me, which was Fallout 3 and Borderlands, and I loved both of those games. But after you put in... I mean, I think Fallout 3, I had, 200 hours in that game?
True.
I mean, I had a lot...
of hours.
Dude, it was a ton. I loved that game. You know, that was the first game I got for my PlayStation. That was the only game I had for my PlayStation for a long time because I loved that game. And Borderlands, I don't know how many hours I had into it, but it was a lot. Because I had all the expansions. I bought the Game of the Year edition, you know? So,
I still work
and once it was
on
glitched out, I'm
Game
like,
of the Year.
I don't care anymore. Like, I don't care about that platinum. But when I got Far Cry 3, dude, it changed. Like, that game is sweet. That game is sweet.
I still didn't get to play yet. I'm gonna have to look into getting that.
Well, maybe after the show, Skyrim, Far Cry 3,
or something. We'll figure it out. But I think that wraps up our talk of at least our game that we would, if we could, create.
Right, and I'm sure we'll go back to video games here and there.
Yeah, every so often
there's all
we'll
kinds
touch
of other
back on
topics that we want to touch on.
Yeah,
you know, we love obviously entertainment, and we were thinking about talking about movies today. And so, with that being said, like, what are your favorite movies of all time? I mean, like,
well, we all know that I'm a huge nerd. I'm like this big nerd, guys. And
we have this joke, by the way, where Kevin, like, I'll be like, "Hey, have you ever watched this movie?" And he's like, "Yeah, I saw it once." And then like a couple weeks like, "Hey, man, did you ever see this movie?" "Yeah, I saw it once." He's seen every movie ever made like one time. Like, he doesn't watch any movie like
I watch
twice,
it once.
ever.
I remember the movie and I've seen it, so I don't need to watch it again unless it's just that good where I want to watch it again. And there's only a few movies that I have actually sat down and watched 2, 3, 5, 10 times.
That's how you count too. 2, 3, 5, 10. See, I'm the opposite because like I have a terrible memory. So like, let's say I watched The Avengers today. Like that was a great movie. But I don't remember anything about it. So if I go back and watch it again,
but
I'm like,
I remember
awesome.
all of it. If you started saying like parts of it, I would be like, okay, I remember that part. It may take me a little bit for like older movies that I haven't seen in a while, but I can at least kind of keep up with what you're talking about. If you started going off on the Avengers, I would understand it. Now, my favorite movies, like I said, I'm a nerd, so I like all of these nerdy movies.
Give a top 5. Can you think of top 5?
Top 5. Now, do trilogies count as 1 or as 3?
I guess it all depends. I mean, if you have like a trilogy and maybe like 3 other regular movies, I guess you could count that as your top 5. But what if I was like, nope, 5 movies, bang,
5 movies,
5 individual movies.
Okay, it would start off with The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers,
nerd.
The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King,
nerd.
And The Lord of the Rings Fellowship.
Nerd. Okay.
So those are my top 3 movies. Like those are my top.
I'm kidding. Those are great.
I've seen. Okay, they're like 2.5, 3 hours long each, and I've seen each of them probably about 10 times. So if you do the math, that's 3 times 10. That's 30 hours of Lord of the Rings that I have sat down and watched.
Those are the type of movies for. I'm sure you feel the same way for me. Where, I mean, I could sit there for a couple hours and be completely drawn into the storyline, and it doesn't feel stretched out, doesn't feel exaggerated after a while. You know, I don't find myself sitting there like, all right, when's it gonna end? Like, I don't feel that. I don't feel that. Those movies are good.
They are. They're great.
They're not on my top 5, but they're good. So what else you got? Like, what else is good for you?
See, and now it's like after that, a lot of movies are just good or they're not good. I mean, I'm a big fan of Marvel and, you know, stuff like that. I like Marvel more than like DC. So I'm probably going to go ahead and put the Avengers up there as number 4, just because I'm a big fan. I think they could have done more with it, and I think they could have waited a little bit and gotten a couple more people introduced and made a bigger Avengers team. But I like what they did with it. The only downfall I had on the movie, like other than that, was bringing the chick in there, Black Widow, I think is her name. Not Black Widow. It's the girl in the Avengers, the movie The Avengers. Yeah. I just didn't like her part that much. I don't know if it was her or if it was the way they put her in there or how they. I just didn't like her in the movie. I think they could have taken her out and replaced her with Spider-Man or someone else, and I think it would have been a lot better of a movie.
I think it would have been fun because I think the Avengers now, like I don't read comics like I used to, but I think now Wolverine and Spider-Man are part of the Avengers.
They are.
Like that would have been cool to see that.
Take out that girl. I keep thinking I can't think of her name. Was
it Scarlett Johansson? Was her real name? Wasn't it?
That was her actress. But I'm trying to think of what her actual character was. I think it had to do with like Black Widow. I don't know why it's coming to my mind.
Why can we not think of this right now?
It doesn't.
Whatever.
It doesn't matter.
What's that say for her character?
Yeah, that's what we have. That's all we have to say about her characters. I think if you took her out, put Spider-Man or Wolverine in place of her, and Hawkeye was the other one, I believe, with the bow.
I
liked him in there, but where did he come from? All of a sudden, he's just in the Avengers movie. Dude, there has never been a movie about him that's like been released in the past 5 years.
I was so disappointed because like I really like Hawkeye, but I want to see him in his like purple outfit, man. Like when I think of the comics and even when I think of the video games and stuff, like he is in his purple outfit, and he wasn't wearing that in the movie. And I still think it's cool that they threw him in there, I guess. Yeah, but I just really like the outfit, man. Yeah. You know, that's what I relate when I think of Hawkeye.
I would put the 3 Lord of the Rings first,
okay,
and then I would put the Avengers.
All right.
Wow, I can't think of a 5th movie though.
Star Wars, anything like that?
I like the Star Wars, but I wouldn't say they're my top favorites.
All right.
I like the Star Wars and I like the story and I kind of keep up with it, but they're not my top favorites. Same with Harry Potter. I really enjoy the movies and all 8 movies, 7 parts though. It's like I enjoy the movies and I enjoy the story and I kind of keep up with it, or I did, but I just don't think they're in my top. I can't think of another movie that's just like popping up.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. You think about it for a little bit, because my top 5 is just strange. Like, at least yours kind of come from the same niche, that like nerdy, comic booky stuff like that. You know, mine are just so weird, and I have such trouble thinking about movie number 1 and number 2. Like, I have such a hard time with it because I want to say, here's the thing: my top 2 in no particular order are the Thomas Crown Affair and Wolverine. And here's the thing, like, I want to put Wolverine number 1 simply because it's Wolverine. And I almost feel like I'd be cheating Wolverine if I didn't put him number 1. But at the same time, I had problems with that movie. I'm such a Wolverine fanboy, though, that, like, I can overlook all that stuff simply because Hugh Jackman plays a great Wolverine.
He does a good job.
I enjoy the character.
He does a great job.
I can overlook that, but like, there's no blood on the claws and this and that little stuff that I can nitpick. You know, like whatever. But the Thomas Crown Affair, like, I'm really into art. I love fine art. Like, I love it. I love anything from graffiti to, you know, the Mona Lisa. Like, I love everything. And with the Thomas Crown Affair, like, I used to volunteer at an art museum in Youngstown, Ohio, and I used to think to myself. Like, I used to love it, but I was like, what if somebody ever came in here and tried to grab something up the walls? You know, like, I used to think about this stuff. Not at our museum, but I'm just saying, like, in general, like, art thefts happen all the time. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy all around the world.
Because they're so famous and they're so, they're worth so much money.
Right, but at the same time, like, who are you going to sell that stuff to? You really already have to have, like, a buyer lined up. And stuff, you know, because you can't just be throwing around a Picasso. I mean, there's no, like, you know.
Especially with, like, how valuable they are. The cops are going to, if I bought it or stole it and I sold it to you, everyone knows.
Like, I would have to know what I'm buying specifically send you to get it and keep it under wraps. It would be for me, not to display in my home for like dinner parties and stuff like that. It would have to be for me. You know what I mean? Like that's how that stuff has to work. And I always used to think about that. And the Thomas Crown Affair. Now I believe that's a remake. I think they made it a long time ago. I've never seen the original, but the remake was with Pierce Brosnan. Is that how his name's pronounced?
I think that's how it's pronounced.
And then there's I forget the woman's name, but anyway, they have like this little love story going back and forth. I don't care about the love story, but I love how he steals it, man. Like he's like this billionaire, you know. So he technically doesn't. He has the money. He could buy the stuff if he wants to, but it's all about the chase, man. It's all about getting away with it, you know. And there's something about that movie that I love. You know, I love that movie. So to say that that's number one. Or number two, like, I could see Wolverine in that being up there for me, even though they're so totally different, you know. And then other movies up there for me are like V for Vendetta.
That was a good movie.
I love
it. Is a really good
V for
movie.
Vendetta because that's one of the only movies ever to really get me to think long after the movie's done. You know, like with Wolverine, Thomas Crown Affair, stuff like that. Like once the movie's done, I'm like, that was awesome. That's a great movie. I want to watch it again. With V for Vendetta, it really makes me stop and analyze how our government is compared to that, or what's going on in the world compared to their beliefs and you know, V's beliefs in the movie. And I don't know. That movie really, I don't know. It's just really awesome. It really strikes home. I'm also a Tim Burton fan, so like.
Okay, yeah, those are some good movies too. And but with the Tim Burton, it's like you can like them, but they're kind of weird. So putting them in your top 5, it's like you have to really enjoy them, and that's my preference. Like I love the Tim Burton movies. He's a great guy, great artist when it comes to like making movies and stuff. But I don't see myself putting his movies in my probably even top 10 unless it's like I really enjoyed Edward Scissorhands.
That was a great
movie. I enjoyed a few of those other kind of dark, deep movies that he released, but then again, all of his movies are kind of like dark and deep, and
he just has his own art style.
He does. He has his own art style in every movie he makes, which is good. That means it's his creation.
That's like his fingerprint.
But it's like, for me, it's just a little too odd for me to like it that much.
See, I'm a weird dude. I enjoy all that stuff. Like Nightmare Before Christmas, I've loved that movie since I was young. Black Widow. That's what it was. Black Widow.
The reason I found that out is because he actually has the Avengers, and I'm looking at the case right now and looking on the back, and it says Black Widow. So I had it. I just was unconfident.
That's okay.
About
We're set. But no, like The Nightmare Before Christmas has always been one of my favorites, and I own multiple copies of that movie.
That is Tim Burton, isn't it?
Yes.
That is a great movie. That is. I've only seen it. I actually think I've seen it twice, honestly. And the first time,
record.
But the first time I saw it was only last year. I saw it last Halloween. I was hanging out with my girlfriend and her friends and stuff, and I hadn't seen it, and I think her friend's boyfriend didn't see it. So we all watched it, and I'll be honest, that was a really, really good movie.
I'll tell you what, that, and speaking of, you mentioned Halloween, and obviously that movie deals with Halloween and Christmas.
Yeah.
And speaking of Christmas, I think, Thomas Crown Affair and Wolverine 1 and 2. I think V for Vendetta is probably 3. Nightmare Before Christmas is 4. I think my 5th movie, speaking of Christmas, is A Christmas Story with Little Ralphie.
That is a really good movie. My dad watches it that
was filmed in Cleveland too, man. They had that house all set up. It's like a little museum now. They have like the leg lamp in the window and stuff. Dude, Cleveland is underrated. I always joke around with my buddy Ricky Bobby from back home, and I'm like, Cleveland's terrible. It's a stupid city, but I only joke around because Cleveland has a lot to offer that people don't realize. They just see it as like they base their views on the city based on the sports teams because their sports teams always lose. And I hate to say it because I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, but whatever. But like, no, Superman, Superman? The guys who created Superman, there's 2 of them, born and raised Cleveland, Ohio. If you actually go to the house, they have a big Superman like symbol out front with a little sign that like says who they were and stuff.
That's really cool.
I'm telling you.
Now I like Christmas Story a lot, and my dad, I think it would be on his top 5, and all of them would be Christmas Story. Like, he loves the Christmas Story. Every time during that year, he'll play it on, I think it's like, ABC Family or something like that.
Something like 24-hour marathon.
It's 24-hour marathon, and he is watching every single one. And it's like, he's like he never seen it before, but he will watch it again and again and again.
I remember when I was young, we were watching it at my aunt's house, and she always had like Christmas. You know, we'd always go over there. That's where the family would meet, and we'd go to my aunt's house. I remember watching it on TV one year, and I was sitting right by the TV, and my cousin Summer was sitting there next to me. And the part where they're outside and they're changing the tire on the car, and the kid's like, "Oh, fudge."
But I didn't say fudge. That's the king of words.
Say fudge. Yeah, that part.
Yeah.
I remember looking at my cousin. I was like, "What words he talking about?" Because I had no clue. And she starts laughing at me. She's like, "I can't tell you." I'm like, "Well, tell me. I don't know what you're talking about." And like, I'd still like, I even have memories talking about that.
When was that movie made?
You know?
Late 80s?
Oh,
wasn't it 89?
Something like that.
I think it was. I'm not
Something
sure.
like that. I saw that dude not too long ago. Lydia and I looked up the main guy. I don't even know what his name is. The kid who played Ralphie. I don't even know what his real name is. He looks exactly the same.
Same with a lot of those actors. That did, like Home Alone actor Macaulay Culkin. Now he just looks a little bit more creepy, but
That's just because of the drugs.
Yeah, he still looks the same. A lot of those actors who did those movies as like a kid still look like that kid, just they're taller.
Yeah, that's another movie I used to watch all the time.
And
Home Alone.
Okay, so yeah, especially when my name was Kevin, it was like, what happened?
Kevin McAllister.
Like, what if I did get lost? Would it be the same? Would I have to be stuck in a house and have to do all this stuff like this? Or, like, what would happen? Because I don't know why, just because my name's the same, I think this always going to happen to me. But I was, like, what, 5, 6 years old when the first one?
See, I wouldn't have to worry about that. Because, like, my dad likes to travel, but my mom loves staying in our small town back home. Like, she never goes, like, anywhere outside of town. So, like, I would never be left alone, like, ever. Like, you would just not have it.
But going off of the Christmas Story now, that's your 5? I thought it was only 4.
That's my 5. I got Thomas Crown Affair, Wolverine, V for Vendetta, A Nightmare Before Christmas, and then
Christmas Story.
Christmas Story. Yeah.
And now, is a Christmas Story on your 5 because it's a good movie, or because it's kind of like the nostalgic, it brings back memory movie?
I think both. That one, it's both.
Okay.
That one, it's both. Because, like, Wolverine plays off my love for the character and just seeing the live action version.
Even the comics, like your love for the comics.
All of them hit interest, to be honest with you.
Right.
Because, like, you know me, man, like, the big corporation stuff. Like, people, like, I'm all about the lower middle class. Like, that's me. Like, I pretty much hate the upper class, man. I don't like how they treat us and stuff. And, like, V for Vendetta hits that, you know, aspect of me. And, like, yeah, like, every one of those movies hit something personal with me.
Okay.
You know, I don't know. And just like A Nightmare Before Christmas, I keep calling it A Nightmare Before. It's not that. It's Nightmare Before Christmas, not A Nightmare Before Christmas. But anyway, that movie, like, it strikes a chord with me because, like, I want to consider myself artsy, even though I'm not that good at it. You know, and I was an art major in college, and it's like, I love particular styles, and that style
kind of just tickled your fancy.
Tickled my fancy, yes.
He does a great job with his. I don't know who does his arts, like all of his art for his movies, especially like the animated.
He does
movies.
all that stuff, man. Like he does. You should see sketchbooks and stuff. Tim Burton is a great artist.
But I'm talking about like the computer generated stuff. Like he gives the.
He does everything.
He does it all.
Everything.
One man studio.
He models all the little clay models.
He even does
everything.
The voices. Screw Johnny Depp. He didn't do anything.
That's the thing. Like that's cool too. Like Tim Burton with his relationship with Johnny Depp and stuff. I love like Alice in Wonderland, stuff like that.
Johnny Depp not even Johnny Depp. It's also the
his wife.
His wife. What is her name?
Oh my goodness.
I can't think of her name right now, but she's done a lot of stuff. She's been in every one of his movies just about, and also she was that evil girl in Harry Potter. She was the main.
Really?
She was one of the Death Eaters.
Huh. Death Eater.
I can't think of her name. I can't even think of the actress, like the actress name or the character name.
Do you remember Sweeney Todd? Did you ever watch Sweeney Todd?
That was one.
She was great. She made those like the meat pies with people. Like that was awesome.
That was so like because we knew, but the characters didn't know, but we knew, and that was like the worst part of the movie. I'm like, oh, they're eating humans.
Oh, I love that. I love that
cannibalism.
Movie. I loved that movie, man. It was
and also going to cannibalism. Johnny Depp's part in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, whenever they're in like the big forest area that they made of all candy. Like, everything in here is edible except for us. Well, we are, but that's cannibalism. It's frowned upon in many societies.
What did you think of like the first Willy Wonka, like the original?
I like the first Wonka way better than the more recent one, but that's also kind of I watched that so many times when I was young. It kind of had like this part in my head and also kind of like in my heart, I guess you could say, where I just enjoyed it a lot. The new one, it kind of like I like what they did with it, but they took it too far from the original, I think.
See, it's weird with me. I know what you're saying. I completely agree, but I almost don't relate the two. And the same,
Right.
You know, just like the old Wizard of Oz, and now they have this one out. Now it's Oz. Like, I almost don't relate them. I don't know why. Like, I know it's the same. Like,
See, but I
type of
always
story,
do.
so-
I always think of every little backstory to them, and that's just how I am. That's how I've always been. I've always tried to think of everything possible when it comes to things like that.
I'll tell you what. I don't read like at all.
I don't either,
Like,
so-
I like to read. I just don't. I don't know why. But Wizard of Oz is actually one of those like books that I read because of the movie. Like, I love the movie. But I actually like the book better. I really like the book better, and that's like the only instance
Right.
where like I always talk to people that are like, "You ever read the book before the movie?" and blah 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 blah. I'm like, no, that's just not
No,
me. Like,
that's
I just
not-
want to watch it because I'm a visual guy, man. Like, I'm an art person. Like, I would rather look at a painting and see, or an art style, something like that, and visualize it, see it,
Yeah.
get my own opinion from it, than read about it and stuff. Like, that's
see
just
how
who I am.
yours
I want to
relates to the
visually
other
see
one.
stuff. So that's why I usually just don't read. I'm a visual guy, but that Wizard of Oz book was good, man. It was really
I didn't,
good.
I didn't read either. I wasn't much of a reader, but there is this one series, like the only series I can remember myself reading all the way through, except for the last one, because whenever I got to it, it wasn't out yet. It wasn't released. And then they made a movie about the first three, and it was the series of unfortunate events. I don't know if
Lemony
you...
Snicket's?
Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events, exactly. Now, I loved the books. I read them all through middle school. I went from 1 all the way down to 12, and 13 was released.
Wow.
And I
That's hard.
didn't read 13 because it wasn't released when I was at it. And then by the time it was released in high school, I didn't have to read it anymore. So I didn't. But they made that movie of the first three, which was a good movie and a good representation of the books, but it was in the wrong order.
Really?
They had like the main plots in the right order, but they took stuff from the first book and put it at the end. And I'm like, you can't do that.
Can't
You
do that.
can't do that. But if you've never read the books, it's a great movie. It all works together. But you like,
I never saw Lemony Snicket's. It looked awesome.
It
but
was
I
actually-
I didn't
it was really
watch
good.
it.
But that wouldn't be on my top 5. I think my 5th movie.
Yeah, what's your 5th movie? Did you
Now
think
this
anything
one,
yet?
yeah, I think I got it. Now it's more or less because I'm a huge Disney Pixar fan.
Who's not?
I love.
They do some work over there.
They are geniuses. They're
right.
brilliant.
That studio
They're
has
awesome.
it going on right now.
Now I love every movie but one movie, and that's on my other side, my least favorite.
Uh-oh.
But my favorite from them would probably be Toy Story.
The original?
I like the original probably
The whole
most.
series is great, but I'm
But
just saying.
it's up there, one, because of how good they did with the graphics. Like, that was one of the big first like stepping stones into the animated world. Like, they took a big step and they did a great job with
Right.
it. And now everyone else is doing it because it's like
Right.
it's done so well now. And they've even improved on it a lot. Toy Story 1 was probably my favorite of the 3, followed by 2 and then 3. Obviously, like, they just, for some reason, they just kept getting worse.
Okay.
But maybe because I was getting older, I still like all 3 of them. They're still great movies.
Yeah.
I just think the first one's a little bit better, just because it's like the first one I watched. It got me into the whole animated, and I actually used to be into art as well. I didn't go as far as you did with it. I was kind of I just did drawing. I looked at a picture and I drew it.
And you're musical, too.
Yeah, I have the musical side of like the art.
See, I don't have that.
Okay, I was a music major actually at first. I was a music education major, and then I changed from that, and I still have it as a hobby now. But
That's the way to do it.
yeah, I really enjoyed the Toy Story movies, but it wasn't because like it was just a great movie like Lord of the Rings. It's like really actiony. It has this really great story. It's all this big stuff. And then Avengers is like this. All it is just action, action, action. I like Toy Story one for its simplicity. It's a simple movie. Doesn't take much to really understand. You don't have to really know any backstory. You don't have to know anything. You just watch it and you enjoy the comedic value of it. You just enjoy watching the movie. And they did that with all 3 of them, but obviously if you get to the second one, you kind of wanted to see the first one to know what was going on.
Yeah.
That's the only backstory you needed to know. But the first one, I like it, 1 for the nostalgic values, and 2 just because it was a great movie. They did a great job with the animation and a great job with the story.
I loved in Toy Story how they had, you remember the arcade when they were in the arcade. Like, that was so neat. And then to see,
Pizza Planet?
Pizza Planet. They had that, I want to say, at Disney World when
I think
we were
they
down
did.
there.
I think it was an actual, but I think it was a restaurant, not an arcade.
Right. And I remember even seeing that then. I was like, oh, that's so cool to see, the perspective of being small and being in there. And then when Wreck-It Ralph came out, seeing the arcade like that, too, man, they just did such a good job. And I was like...
Disney and Pixar, they do some great stuff. I was actually watching a video earlier, and they kept quoting Wreck-It Ralph.
Really?
It's just a great movie.
Did you like Up? What'd you think?
I did enjoy Up. I saw that a couple times actually. It is a great movie as well. I like the. I don't know why I find this so good, but I like the husband and wife's relationship. Like they start off as little kids, and they're like the girl's like some crazy girl who's like all about flying, and the dude's like this little shy guy, and they just keep their relationship going. Things happen. It's actually a very sad beginning, honestly. Kind of like bad things happen. They have to keep getting rid of their savings dollar money.
savings money.
Their bank that they have to keep like killing to get the money out. And then, like, she dies, and he could never take her anywhere, which I thought that was really sad. But then they brought it really happy, and they turned it around. And it was a great movie.
They're so colorful, and that's what really struck me about Up. It's like, because, especially with all those balloons, like, it's so colorful, and you'll find out
each of those balloons separately.
That's ridiculous.
And they're all moving separately. And the thing that I love about the animation they do is, like, if you watch, like, Monsters, Inc. Now, I think was that DreamWorks, or was that Disney Pixar?
I don't remember.
I don't know, but... Either way, they're still very similar.
Yeah, it's in the same realm.
You can see every hair move on Sully, the big blue guy. You can see every hair move, and that's when they do that much with a movie. You know that they got some powerful machines over there.
That's how it's going to be with video games, I think, coming up. I mean, they're really starting out like they won't have the liberty of video games like they do with movies like that. Because it's like a constant animation. Yeah. But they're starting to get to a point with the technology where they can. Define individual hairs and everything like that on characters' heads. And I just think it's cool. It's fun to see where technology goes. Because you got to think, man, you go back, and we're both in our 20s, you go back 10, 15 years, movies are looking so much different then than they are now, as far as special effects-wise. I mean, look at the Star Wars series. I mean, prime example.
And I love the Star Wars, but I was at my first year in college, and I was hanging out with my dorm, my roommate, and another dorm mate who was a couple rooms down. And we all loved the Star Wars. We would sit there and we'd watch the first 3 Star Wars because he had them on DVD. And like I said, we love them. So when you like a movie that much, you kind of don't feel bad making fun of it, just picking at the little things. Well, every time they said something that just sounded weird, we would make fun of it. Or anytime they did the special effects, we would make fun of it because of how bad the special effects were. It was good for the time.
At the time, it was like
great
cutting
for
edge.
The time.
Like, man, are those cameras actually in space?
But now I look at it, I'm like, you can tell that that's fake. And they still did a great job with it, but it is crazy to see, like, the big transition. Like, all of a sudden, you go from more or less just staged props to actually being able to create the props in the computer and uploading them right into the footage. Putting them right in there like that. I think whoever started up with that and kind of originated that was a smart guy.
I think it's interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting when you look at the difference between those movies back then and the movies now, and they're going to be making more Star Wars movies. And
yeah, they are, because Disney bought out the rights.
I'm curious how it's going to go. No, I have 100% complete faith in Disney. They have the resources. They have the resources to...
But the problem with... And they have plenty of books. Not Disney, but Star Wars. There's plenty of Star Wars books to go off of. But like with the main story, they kind of got it all taken care of already. The only thing they can do now is just go off on side stories.
I don't know. There was, I guess, the Star Wars books. Like, I never read any of the books. Once again, I don't read the books for the movies and stuff. But I guess there is like a ton of Star Wars books out.
There are.
There's plenty of like meat.
There's plenty to work with. But like what I'm saying is, they already have They have the 6 movies. They have 4 through 5 or 4 through 6, and then 1 through 3.
Right.
They have those. That's the main storyline. The only thing they can really do with that is either break it down further, or do kind of just take a book
before or after,
or even like other stories that have been like written down throughout the time and all that stuff. But I have faith in them as well. I have great faith in Disney and being able to create something with it. But I'm kind of a little skeptical on how good it's going to be.
Right. One thing I wanted to touch on with you today is here we are. We're talking a lot about nerd movies and art styles and this and that. And like with Star Wars, when I watch the old movies and I watch the new movies, to me it doesn't matter what the the effects are and this and that, because the storyline is what I love about that. So even if they made the new movies in the old way, or did the old movies in the new way, like, I don't care. I'm there for the storyline.
Yeah, and I am too overall, but I just think it's sometimes fun just to pick at like the graphics and whatnot.
But with that being said, look at how horror movies and like scary movies have evolved over the years. I hear when I think it was when the first Exorcist came out, I remember hearing stories. Now obviously I wasn't in the theaters to see this, but I heard when the first Exorcist came out, it was so controversial that people were literally getting sick in the theaters, getting so scared that they were leaving. I mean, lots and lots of people. But if you and I were to kick on The Exorcist today, we'd be like, that's funny, look at her puke. Like, yeah. It's just, like, it doesn't strike the same... I wouldn't think that would strike the same amount of fear today as those movies did then. And so I almost feel bad for, like, the scary and horror community, because now you have to rely heavily on... like visual effects, where a long time ago, it was when it was really starting to pick up that...
It was more personal interpretation of what could happen.
And in music, played a big deal in that, because you got to think, I mean, when movies are starting to really...
the chords they use kind of set the tone to the...
I don't think they have that effect today, man. I don't think they have that effect on audiences
They don't use music that much anymore in the horror movies. They use, like, the typical, like... background music, but it's not like how it was in 50s and 60s when the horror movies kind of started, like with the original, like Werewolf, where all they would do is run into a closet and you would hear everybody, don't go in the closet. Yeah. I mean, that's how the horror movies used to start off, was as simple as that. And we all know, hey, she's going in the closet, she's going to die. Now they would take it to the next level and you don't even know what's going to happen next.
I mean, those guys have to put in a lot of effort now. A lot of effort to, like, attempt to scare their audiences. Like, I know Evil Dead's coming back out, and, like, Lydia doesn't want to go see scary movies, which is unfortunate, because I do. I mean, not all the time,
I'm not a big scary movie fan either. I've never been able to sit down and just watch one. I've seen a few, but they just don't strike me as entertaining to me. Because it's just more ways of killing people. It's more ways of pushing harm onto a person. It's not entertaining to me. Now, a lot of people enjoy them, and there's a lot of positive reviews on a lot of scary movies. They're actually one of the top genres right now that people are watching. Me personally, I would choose to watch a comedy or an action over a horror.
I would too, given the choice, but at the same time, I haven't seen a horror movie or a scary movie in so long. Like, I want to watch one. I really do, but it's weird because, like, I'm a jumper. So, like, when something jumps out at me, and I swear, I jump, like, a foot in the air. Like,
this big dude jumping around.
like, things freak me out. But at the same time, I almost kind of miss that, because I haven't seen a scary movie in a long time. I'm like, I want to watch one, but Lydia won't watch it. You don't want to watch one. Like,
I mean, just I will, my friends. But I just prefer not to.
I feel like I'm missing out. I'm like, man, I don't know.
Okay, so that's our top 5 favorites. So yours was Wolverine.
A whole bunch of awesome art scenes. See, like, the weird thing is, I have such a variety of mine. Mine go from, like, Christmas movie to, like, nerd movies. You're staying in that same little niche. Yeah. Like, I don't blame you. The movies you said are good. But let me ask something. What was, out of all the movies you've ever watched, what did you, like, hate the most? Like, was there anything you actually hated?
The only movies I would say I hated that I just could not sit through were kind of like the scary movies. Like, I would go see a few, but like...
Wait, scary movies is in like the scary movie franchise? Like the funny
because those ones are funny. I will watch those anytime. Right. But it's like movies that are labeled as horror movies.
Gotcha.
I just don't like them. I just don't watch them. They're not what I want to watch. I'm not going to waste my time watching one of those movies. And I know that probably annoyed like half the people listening because a lot of people like them, and I know that. I just don't. I would rather sit down, like I said, watch action or an adventure or comedy over that. Those would be the only movies that I would say I hated, that I just couldn't sit through. Now, going back to the Disney Pixar thing, is the only movie that Disney and Pixar has ever
Don't
released.
do it.
The only one
Don't do
that
it.
they have ever released
Don't
that
let's
I
not
could
do this
not
again. Don't do it.
sit through is now I this may annoy a lot of people too, just because I've heard
do
a
it.
lot of positive feedback from this movie. Now, WALL-E was the movie that Disney and Pixar made. I think, what was it, like 07, 08,
Boo.
maybe 9,
Boo.
and I can't sit through it. I can't get into that movie. That's the only movie though.
That's
the
such
only,
a good movie, man.
and that's what everyone tells me, but I just
That's what everyone
can't-
tells me.
I just can't
Ah.
sit through it. I try. So I've tried like 3 times to just watch it, and I'm just like, I'm gonna watch it this time. Halfway through, I'm just like, I can't do it.
I respect your personal opinion. I, however, disagree. I think it's a good movie, man. Like, it's not one of my favorites. Like, it probably wouldn't make my top 25 list, but...
Top 25. Now we just keep expanding the list.
Yeah, like, let's just keep talking. Like, our first 10 podcasts are, like, a top 25 movies list. But, no, I mean, like, it's not one of my favorites. Like, I don't know. It's good.
It's
good.
I couldn't get into it.
It's at least average. At least average.
I don't know, but that would be mine. That'd be the only movie that I couldn't make it through. I give every movie I watch a chance. I do. I'm not gonna disrespect the person who made it, and I'm not gonna disrespect the people I'm watching it with. 'Cause typically,
true.
I'll watch a movie with people, and I'm not gonna be like halfway through. I'm not doing this. I don't want to watch it anymore.
Right. I mean, well, that's somebody's artistic vision.
Yeah.
You know, just because it doesn't align with what you would want out of a movie doesn't mean
but
you said, like, the rest of the audience or whoever isn't going to love it, you know?
Yeah, and I'm gonna at least give it a chance. But I gave that movie a couple chances, and I couldn't make it through. I'm sorry.
Man, that's all right. Now, sitting here, I honestly can't think of a movie that I absolutely hated. I'm sure if I put some thought into it, I could probably come up with something. But one movie that comes to my mind that a lot of other people hated that I really liked was Waterworld. And when I used to work back home, I used to work with this guy named Tim. And Tim and I both really liked Waterworld. And we were like, what are these people thinking? Like, it's a good movie. And I don't care. And they say it's like, at the time, like, the budget they spent on that movie was more than any other movie of all time. Like, they spent more money. Up to that point. Now, I'm sure that's been broken since because movies are starting to get crazy.
Yeah.
You know, but up to that point, you know, the sets and everything that they did cost the most amount of money. But, you know, I don't care about that bull crap. I just liked the movie. I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed this, you know, pirate world where, like, you know, everything's, you know, on the water. You know, these, like, little floating cities are on the water. And, yeah, I just enjoyed that. There's something about the movie.
I don't think I've seen Waterworld before.
And there's almost a little bit of savage to it, you know, because, like, some people were civilized, but man, you never know. You get robbed at any time or this and that. Like, I enjoyed that. I thought it was a good movie, but the ratings for it were horrible. Like, people hated it. And, like, I think Kevin Costner did good. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe I have a low standard for movies, but I'm just saying.
Maybe you do.
Maybe I do.
I don't know.
But you know what? That's not necessarily a bad thing because at least I can enjoy more movies because of my low standards, you know?
Yeah, true. And I've never seen Waterworld, so I don't know if it's a good movie to me. I've just never seen it. But
I liked it.
So would that be your least? What would be your least favorite? Not movie you hated, but at least the least favorite you've sat through.
I'll tell you what. I can't think of like a least favorite movie. Like, give me some time. Maybe on podcast number 4, I'll be able to like throw out my least favorite movie. One thing that drives me nuts though is like Lydia. She wants me to watch love stories a lot, like the Nicholas Sparks movies. And like I'll be like,
oh, here comes the attack.
I don't want to. But at the same time, usually whenever I watch them, they're good movies. Would they be some of my favorites? No, but I could see where a female would like them. Just like the Twilight series, like I've watched all of them because Lydia wanted to watch all of them.
Sit through one of those either, but
I can't say I blame you, but at the same time, like I watch them because she wants to, and
yeah,
I enjoy them. But when I think of werewolves and when I think of vampires, I think of like
you don't think of glitter.
No, that's like the last thing I think of.
Yeah, they put
like,
glitter on your face and rip your shirt off.
Just
So
like,
there you go. There's a Twilight movie.
Yeah, less than, not equal to, like vampires. Like I don't know how to explain it. I just don't enjoy that. But I mean, I guess they were okay. You know, whatever.
Yeah.
I appreciate them for what they were because it got females liking vampires. I guess.
And
like
it did make the actors really famous after that. So that was good for the actors. Now the main actor, what was his? Robert Pattinson, I think.
So.
He also did Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
And he was in the fourth book and movie. He was the guy who died during the gauntlet at the end. But anyway, Robert says to an interview. I don't know when this was, but it was after a few movies in with Twilight, not at the last one, but a few movies in, he actually told the interviewer, he was like, I honestly do not like Twilight series at all. I took the job at first because it was a job and it was a good paying one.
Yeah.
But now that I'm in it, I would go back to play Cedric Diggory any day, any
Really?
day of the year or a day of the week, anything. I would go back and die in Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter than sit through another movie of Twilight.
Yeah, I told you. Speaking of Harry Potter, I told you about a buddy of mine from back home being
The super fan.
Yeah, he's in Guinness Book of World Records for the most Harry Potter collectibles. Even though he claims that the number is off in the record books, I don't know if it's too low, too high, or whatever. But still, like he's into the Harry Potter stuff, man. And like I think with Harry Potter, it can target anywhere from children to adults. You know,
Yeah,
like,
and that's another reason I like the Disney Pixar movies because they have the humor
Right.
that adults will get, so that they because all kids are gonna be like, "Mom, take me to go see this movie," and everyone's
Right.
like, the parents like, "Okay, you want to, we'll go." But throughout the movie, you find
you
that
enjoy
humor
it. Right.
that Disney and Pixar put in for the adults,
Right.
but the kids won't get them. Like there are so many movies that I watched a long time ago. A Bug's Life, for example.
Great movie.
Great movie. I watched that when I was young. I didn't get it. I got it, but I didn't get some of the jokes. Watched it like a couple months ago, or I guess like 7 months ago, and I was like, I get that joke now.
Yeah.
I didn't get it when I was
they're
7
good,
years old.
They're good movies.
They did a
They're
great
good
job.
movies. So, okay. Go ahead.
Going off the collectibles, now you said your friend's like the super fan Harry Potter guy
Right.
who does all the collectibles. Now,
I'll tell you what struck me about him. Okay, since we mentioned him, like I remember we had a drawing class together, and I saw this tattoo on his arm, and it was a signature. And I always think signature tattoos are interesting because I mean, you really have to love a particular human being or person to get a tattoo of their signature on your arm. You know, so I remember one day I was like, okay, Steve, I got to ask you, who's his signature of? And it was of J.K. Rowling.
Right.
And he told me the story about how he met her. She signed his arm, and he went to go get it tattooed. And that's kind of the moment where I started finding out about his love for Harry Potter. Man, and he was on collegehumor.com, and they had like this thing, he had his video online explaining who he was, why he's the biggest fan of that. And I remember the thing that they said about him was something like, the only thing this wizard can make disappear is girls, or something like that, like making fun of him.
That's good. That's good.
It was really
College
funny.
Humor is really funny.
They have
website.
some decent stuff.
But do you have any movie or any like big name? I know you're not a reader, but like book, movie, story, anything that you have like a collection like that with, or any? Do you have like a collection of some sort?
Well, I see. I'm a comic book guy. I mean, I have Wolverine comic books.
Right.
I mean, all day long. And I was actually thinking about that not too long ago. Like, if I wanted to, if I was going to get rid of my comic book collection, what would I keep? And I think it comes down to like three particular things. I have my Stan Lee autographed comic. I will never get rid of that till the day I die.
No,
I love that.
That's one of those things you can't get rid of.
Meeting Stan Lee was awesome. He's a cool dude. And like I got to talk to him, which I was very lucky to do, and I got him to sign something, and that was great. So I have that. There was a mini series with Wolverine back in the 80s of when he was in Japan, and I loved that too. I would keep that series that I have. And for some reason, my mom bought me a comic book a long time ago. It was the X-Men of the 90s, that series, and it was a comic, I want to say number 11, and I just love it for the cover. It shows Wolverine in the foreground, like closest to the camera with his claws out, and the rest of X-Men are kind of standing around him in the background,
Right.
and some are looking at him, some are looking at the camera. Just something about that cover, man.
It hits you.
Yeah, there's something about that cover, and I think even if I got rid of the rest of all my comic books, and I got some cool stuff too. I got some personalized covers that people have drawn on, like different artists and stuff. I have some cool autographed stuff. But I think I would get rid of all that stuff to keep my Wolverine stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, as far as collectibles, like, I don't do the Harry Potter thing or this and
Yeah.
that, but I think Wolverine, comic books would be my closest thing to any collectible that I have.
Well, that's cool. I didn't know that you had I knew you had comic books. I didn't know you had like that many Wolverine ones though. That's cool.
Just a couple hundred.
Just a couple thousand or so.
Nothing-
All of
nothing
them.
major, yeah.
But that's interesting. So that wraps up the movie topic, I'd say, right?
No,
No,
it doesn't.
it doesn't.
Because I have something I need to say. Call out of the day.
Call out of the day. Now, before you do this call out of the day,
I'm ready for it.
I want to just I want to go off of a little thing that we did between podcasts. We have an email now. It's called Just Kidding with JNK@gmail. So if you have any suggestions, any ideas, please send them our way. Let's take a look at them.
What was that email address again, just in case we missed it?
Just Kidding with JNK@gmail.com. Gmail.com. We have a website now, so please stop by and send us something, anything positive, hopefully positive.
Anything, or send us questions. I mean,
send us questions. We'll talk about them. We're gonna try to get some. We're gonna try to go off a little less on a specific topic, but more on what you guys want. If you have a question, ask us, and we'll throw it in here if we can get to it. Or if you have a suggestion, we'll probably touch up on it.
Yeah, because next time, I think, honestly, like you mentioned it the other day, we started talking about how much professional sports athletes make. And I wouldn't mind having a show on that. Not necessarily a whole show, but I wouldn't mind talking about that. Maybe next time.
Real quick, yeah.
Maybe next time you could look forward to that, and we'll discuss, how much these people are making. What do a lot of them do with their money? And we'll just kind of go off on that. But with that being said,
do you want to wait for the next episode to get this call out going?
No, it's the call out of the day. Today's not so much of an attack as it is a warning. I am speaking to you, Disney. Disney, listen to me. You now own 90% of the earth. And I'm cool with that because I've been to Disney World a couple times. You do a lot of cool stuff. But you need to listen to me, and you need to listen to me deep right now. Write this down if you need to. Play the podcast twice. Take notes. I can even send you an outline with bullet points if you want. Take note on this. You now own Star Wars. You shut down Lucasfilms. I believe they shut down that studio and everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And you know what? It kind of irritates me because, Secret of Monkey Island, all kinds of good stuff came from that. But if you make another Star Wars movie,
and it does not compete,
and it is terrible, and I don't even want to say terrible. I'm not talking about visuals. I don't really care because I know visually it will probably look stunning. I'm talking about storyline. If you make another Star Wars movie and it is a bunch of crap, a steaming pile of flaming crap, I will disown you, as well as that 90% of the world that you own. Star Wars is popular in Europe, in Asia, all over the world. And if you ruin that, oh my goodness, if you ruin that, something that started back in the 70s, it's been around for 40-some years, oh man, if you ruin that, I will never speak to you ever again. We will never talk about your products. We will not promote you. And I think you do some fantastic stuff. You work your magic. But if you don't add that little bit of magic into this Star Wars movie that you plan on making, I will be angry. I will be angry. And that's my call out of the day.
That's your call out.
It's going to Disney.
Quick question for you then.
I love you, Disney. I'm just saying, I'm not throwing you hate right now. I'm just issuing a warning. And I think you already know this stuff. I think you know that if you
have
butcher
high
this,
expectations right now.
You really have high expectations.
From a lot of Americans, and even from a lot of people around the world.
Dude, think of it this way. Disney, whenever they come out with the movie, they have nothing, it's like a clean slate. When Pirates of the Caribbean came out or whatever, you have nothing to compare that to. It was just a great movie, whatever. But the Star Wars franchise has a reputation, has the fanboys, has people that have fallen in love with these characters for decades. You have a reputation to uphold.
And we expect it to be held up.
Do it.
Yep.
Do it, Disney. I would high five you right now because I believe in you. But just do it. Just pull through for me. That's all I'm asking. You have the means to get this done, so do it.
Quick question: Do you want animated or live action?
Live action.
Live action. I was just curious.
Live action.
I'm fine with either. I prefer live action, but I'm fine with either.
Live action. And if you use CGI stuff, please make it blend. Please make it blend. Don't let me know that it's computer animated stuff. Of course I'm gonna know it is, but I don't want to be able to tell that it is. Just make it look nice.
Yeah.
Nice, pretty, nice storyline. That's all I'm asking, Disney. I appreciate what you're about to do, but you need to do it well. You need to do it well. And that's my call out of the day, Disney. You got my love, but you got to pull through.
Got to pull through.
That's my call out of the day.
Okay, so what we have for next time, we're still working on it, but we're probably going to try to go into a little bit of us, how our hobbies are, going into the collectibles, what we kind of have an idea of what John collects. I'm going to go into what I collect next time. Nerd. All of my collections are probably going to be nerds. His was a nerd. His was comic books. I mean, come on, you can't get much
Yours
more nerd.
is Like if mine's like lower level nerd, you're like upper level nerd.
Well,
like
we
yours
all know
actually
I'm a nerd,
requires
so.
mathematics. But I'm not gonna spoil that for you. We'll hit
You
on
guys,
that.
that's up for your interpretation.
Yeah, we'll
up
hit that
until
next
next
time.
time. Now, like I said,
Like-
we're going to talk about collections. We're going to try to get into a little bit of.
Like I said, I wouldn't mind talking about the sports figures and
We're-
stuff.
like I said, we're gonna try to get
especially
a
because
little
like
on the
I'm an
sports.
NBA fan and the playoffs are coming.